Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Travis Brown to defeat Derek Lewis. And I'm here to talk about the UFC 305 preliminary card. Opening up the card for UFC 305 and the preliminary card is Stuart Nichols versus Jesus Santos Aguilar. My prediction for the fight is Stuart Nichols wins, and I've got him winning by decision, but I have no confidence in that. Even if you told me he won, I'd guess it'd be by decision, but it's not something I could be sure of, especially when you plug in their wins and losses. But also, I couldn't be sure he's going to win the fight anyway. It's at the point where I've already bet on Jesus Santos Aguilar. That's right. And once the props drop, I'll see what submission looks like. Because the basis for my bet on Aguilar is that, first of all, even though he's only got four more fights than Stuart Nichols, he's got better experience altogether. It's not just the four fights. He's fought better competition. And even though he suffered two losses in his career, I still think he's got the much better overall experience behind him. And he's also got the best weapon in the fight, the guillotine choke. It's the best weapon in this matchup. And it's not just your average guillotine, which everybody's got one in round one. Jesus Santos Aguilar has hit that guillotine as deep as the 25th minute of a fight, the last minute of round five against another UFC fighter, in Edgar Chairez, a current UFC fighter anyway. And he was able to end that fight. He also hit it in the final minute of round two against Jamie Alvarez, former Ultimate Fighter contestant. Maybe not the best fighter, but he was at one time knocking on the door of the UFC. And he got him out of there deep into round two. He also got Erickson Fajeda out of there in round three, which is what secured him a spot in the UFC. So it's a great weapon, but he keeps it throughout the fight. It's always going to be a threat. And I'm picking Stuart the Nickel to win by being on top of Jesus Santos Aguilar. That's the basis for my prediction. So definitely warrants a bet. Jesus Santos Aguilar, his guillotine and his odds, almost 2-1. But again, let me talk about Stuart Nichols here. 8-0. He's answered every question. He's passed every test. He's 29 years old, not the youngest guy, close to his prime. And he's finished 7 of his 8 wins. 4 by TKO, 3 by submission, and I think all 7 of them are on the ground. Maybe he clipped one guy. I don't know. But the majority of his finishes take place on the ground. He's just a seek and destroy top game fighter, and he's been able to destroy everybody but one guy. And that's because he's been fighting shittier competition. Again, the experience is way on the side of Jesus Santos Aguilar. But Stuart Nichols has been to a decision once. It was a 5-rounder, and he looked good in the fight. He didn't have a perfect fight. He was reversed and got pinned pretty much in round 3. Also got taken down and pinned briefly or for a good chunk of time in round 5. It wasn't a perfect performance, but he did well overall. Didn't really slow down. He always knew he was in control of the fight, and even when things got turned around, he knew he was up on points. And it was a good learning lesson for him. I'm sure he learned a lot of lessons in a victory, which it doesn't get any better than that. But again, steamrolling everybody else and answering every question and the rest of it, it's still not enough to alleviate the doubt I have in anybody who hasn't beaten one great fighter. So he's got to prove himself. This is a significant step up in Jesus Santos Aguilar, and he might pass it with flying colors. I'm picking him to win by decision, even though Jesus Santos Aguilar has never lost by decision, unless you count his last fight, the Mateus Mendonça. That was close. But I think Stuart Nichols will be tested here. He will face danger, even if the fight's generally going his way. Again, you can never relax even in the guard of Jesus Santos Aguilar. And I think Stuart Nichols will slow the fight down a little bit rather than speed it up. Because if the fight gets at too much of a hectic pace, Jesus Santos Aguilar, with his experience, I think will fare better and control his energy better. Also on the feet, Stuart Nichols, I think, is outgunned as far as power goes. Jesus throws down. He's only got one knockout. That's it, just the Shannon Ross fight. But I'm not fooled by that. The guy's got serious fucking power, and I think it's an advantage over Stuart Nickel in this fight. I can't say overall he's going to have the striking advantage though, Stuart Jesus, because Jesus is sloppy and he's hittable and he's a little too aggressive, which can bring you right into your opponent's traps. Could be getting his legs chopped or getting taken down or whatever. But I still favor Stuart Nickel as far as the gun to my head prediction goes, because even if he's not able to fight a perfect fight, he's still got the home crowd. And if it does go the distance, the guy with the top control and the home crowd should win it. And that's really the basis for the pick. He might get past Jesus Santos Aguilar and destroy him. That's always possible too, and that would really impress me. I don't expect that, but look, Jesus has only been beaten twice, both of them by submission. He was submitted in his debut in MMA, which I'm always quick to dismiss the debut, but it was a submission loss. And that does sync up with his last loss, which was another submission loss, although it was a triangle armbar to Tatsuro Taira, who's one of the best fighters in the world. So not a lot of shame there, but still two losses, and they are both by submission. I'm just saying a finish for Stuart Nickel is not out of the realm of possibility. But the pick is Stuart Nickel winning by decision. The bet is Jesus Santos Aguilar. And once the props drop, I'll try to find a way to bet on fucking everything, like I always do. Next up, we have Ricky Glenn versus Kenan Song. My prediction for the fight is Kenan Song wins. And I'll go with him winning by knockout just because of the way things are trending. But in general, I think he should win this fight. Ricky Glenn, he's now 35 years old, or 35 and a half, if you want to be a kid about it. And he's coming off of two knockout losses. He was never knocked out before these losses, but now he's been knocked out twice. Drew Dober and Christos Yagos. And that's the reason he's moved up in weight here. He's moving up in weight to 170 to fight Song Kenan, and that might really help out his chin. It might be the ultimate difference. But I still think, even if it protects his chin, and I'm not sure it will, I think Kenan Song could still bully him around physically, where he'd get the better of him and win the positional battle and ultimately the decision. And, you know what, maybe he's got a chance of submitting him too. Ricky Glenn's been submitted twice, but they were both many, many, many years ago, and the last of which came to Lance Palmer, who is like another version of Uriah Faber, like all the old alpha male guys. But I think the chin would be the first thing to fail for Ricky Glenn. Again, he was knocked out twice recently, and Song Kenan, while he may not be Li Jing Liang, he's still got that power. He's got good power in him, and I think it's enough to knock out a skinnier lightweight. So that's my pick for this fight. I've got him winning by knockout. I think Song Kenan, he's a little chinny as well. He's been knocked out 4 times, one of which actually came to Israel Adesanya many, many years ago with a head kick. And then he was knocked out with a punch to the body from Brad Riddell, who I think is still in the UFC, but I don't know. Excellent fucking fighter, though. And then twice in the last few years, he was knocked out to Max Griffin, which really surprised me. Max is an awesome striker, but never really respected for the power. That was his one big knockout. And Ian Gary also got him out of there in round 3. Really turned it up in the final moments and got him out of there. And of course, I have to mention, Song Kenan almost knocked out Ian Gary in round 1. Dropped him, had him hurt badly, but wasn't able to close the show. Still, this is a fight that I think favors Song Kenan no matter what type of fight it is. Ricky Glenn, he's got a lot of great assets, but I don't think he's going to carry them into his welterweight career here. I think he's going to be slowing down. I expect him to be the slower guy in general. I think his ground game is going to be shut down with top position. I mean, he's still not bad at all off his back, but we're kind of past the days of the whole guard game attack. If you don't believe me, go ask Marcin Tabora. He'll tell you all about it. But I do think Song Kenan should win, no matter what type of fight it is. And I'm going against the recent trend, which is Ricky Glenn's chin being shot. Again, it might have been patched up a little bit at welterweight, but uh, in addition to whatever he's gaining from moving up at welterweight, he's losing something by going up against welterweight power. So following the trends, going with Song Kanon by knockout. And if I'm wrong, I got Song Kanon winning by decision. That's why without the prop bets, I have bet on him at 2-1 odds or 1-2 odds, frankly. And I'm happy with that. Song Kanon is my. Okay, I'm going to make this next one quick. Tom Nolan versus Alex Reyes. My pick for this fight is Tom Nolan wins by knockout in round one. And my only bet will be Alex Reyes wins by knockout in round one. Reyes should lose this fight. He's 37 or whatever he is now. He's only had one fight in the last 6 years, dealt with a lot of shit. And that one fight was a knockout loss. And the one fight before that was also a knockout loss. He'd never been knocked out before, but he is coming off of 2 knockout losses. And with the long layoff and the age and everything in between, not to mention he's fighting a superior athlete who's like 2 feet taller than him and moves twice as fast as he does. He's going to lose by knockout in round one. Or knockout, anyway. But the basis for the bet, or the eventual bet on Alex Reyes, is just the doubt that there is in Tom Nolan. He's got it all going offensively, but his one loss was a knockout loss last year to Nicholas Mota, or this year maybe. Nicholas Mota knocked him dead in a minute. Mota, while he may have been on his way out of the UFC, as far as people like me thought, and he may have had a bunch of tough losses and the rest of it, he still had a lot of great danger, and he was able to crack the chin of Tom Nolan. Nolan also lost once as an amateur by TKO. It was more cardio that failed him. In a 9-minute fight, he was desperately shooting for takedowns in round 3. They were failing him, where they weren't failing him earlier, they were failing him later, and he ended up getting clipped and taken out. And also against Victor Martinez in his last win, he was dropped. He recovered well, and in the end, made sure we forgot about it, or tried to anyway, with smoking him in round 1 with a body shot. But he still was clipped. So with all this doubt, there's not a lot of it, but there's not a lot of fights either. All this doubt is in a short period of time. He's only 24 years old. I feel like it's worth a shot on Alex Reyes, especially if he knows, hey, my back's against the wall here. There's one way to beat this guy, and I got to go through his chin. Let me give myself a shot. So that's the basis for wasting some money on Reyes via knockout in round 1. But the pick is Tom Nolan wins by knockout in round 1. And I doubt I'll bet on that. He's an 11-1 favorite. I can't believe how big his odds are, how long the odds are. There's a lot of downside with Reyes and a lot of upside with Tom Nolan, but still not a lot of experience with Tom Nolan to really prove all this out. So his knockout line, I don't think is going to be anything close to plus money, anywhere near that. Even knockout in round 1, I don't think that'll get anywhere close to plus money. So I'm staying away from Tom Nolan altogether, unless they really get those odds wrong. And I'm just wasting money on Alex Reyes. Again, the upside is really in the betting line. He's at plus 750 for the money line. I don't even know what round 1 knockout's going to look like, but it's going to be worth it. Frankly, the money line at plus 750 is worth it. I've said it before, but I'm a fat pussy and I don't know how to fight. I'd bet on myself at plus 750 to beat Tom Nolan or fucking Stipe Miocic. Doesn't matter. I'd probably lose both fights though, no? Yeah. Anyway, Tom Nolan by knockout is the pick, and there will be no real fucking bets. And in the next fight, we have pretty much the same exact type of fight as the last fight. Herbert Burns versus Jack Jenkins. My pick for this fight is Jack Jenkins. I've got him winning by round 2 stoppage. But more than anything, I'm sure he wins by stoppage. And as for Herbert Burns, he's got a small window just like Alex Reyes. 1 round to make shit work. He's got more threats. He's a very big threat on the ground. An excellent submission artist where if he's having his way with Jack or anybody else, they're in trouble. He's got great submission skills. And on the feet, he's proven to be pretty fucking dynamic. Go ask Nate Landwehr, who he knocked out with a knee. But after that round one storm ends, and it might not even last all of round one, to be honest, it might last half of round one. But at that point, Jack Jenkins is going to take over. And if they're on the feet, he's going to chop Herbert Burns down. And if they're on the ground, he's going to smash him into the ground with elbows. And he's going to put him away. That's my prediction. It will be my bet if the odds are worth it. He's an 8-1 favorite. I just don't like that at all. It's too big, but the round two props could be worth it. Hopefully, you're seeing plus numbers with that. I don't even fucking know. He's such a big favorite. But that would be my play. Jenkins winning by finish altogether, TKO really, but definitely a few extra sprinkles in round two and maybe something in round three, but really round two. I think the cardio collapse of Herbert Burns is something I can rely on, and Jack Jenkins is a deadly guy, versatile guy, and he's gotten finishes down the stretch. He's got good cardio. I think he's going to bring the trouble for Herbert Burns and put him away. For Herbert Burns, I think it will be worth betting on him winning in round one. That's his only window to make something happen. That 5 minute window, and again, it's probably like a 3.5 minute window. But he's got the submission advantage when he's firing on all cylinders. Great grappler, and he's a solid enough finisher. You know, he's not Mr. Striker, but he's showing he's got danger, and he's shown at the UFC level. So with him bringing that offensive storm, and he's 36 years old, I would think it's past it. He's past the point of trying to, redevelop his cardio or sharpen his cardio or whatever. This is just who he is as a fighter. He's not going to get any healthier or younger. You may as well put your foot on the gas as hard as you can, floor it, and go for a finish in round one. So on that basis, might be worth a sprinkle for him. It is worth a sprinkle on Herbert Burns in round one, but I consider that a wasted sprinkle. Jack Jenkins should win this fight, and it should be by TKO in the middle of the fight, hopefully in round two and not at the end of round one. Next up, we have Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos. My prediction for the fight is Santos wins by decision, but I don't have the most confidence in that because of, first of all, the hometown crowd for Casey O'Neill, and that really only matters in a decision. And secondly, Luana Santos is taking this on short notice. I don't know what kind of shape she's in. I know she did just recently smoke Maria Agapova in July, but still, she wasn't planning on fighting here, and now she's showing up to fight. The last time she showed up on short notice, she fought Stephanie Egger, and cardio almost cost her the fight. She also moved up in weight for that one and whatever, I believe, but she slowed down noticeably. And Casey O'Neill's not a girl you want to slow down against. Casey O'Neill, she's gotten a lot of finishes in round two, three of them, I believe, in the UFC. If you get tired and that girl gets on top of you, you're in trouble. But I'm picking Luana to not let her get on top of her. Luana Santos is 8-1. Her one loss was where somebody was able to get on top of her. It was to this girl, Jenna Bishop, who beat her by split decision. It was a really close fight. The girl, Jenna, is an incredible grappler and really tough. Luana took it to her, tried to make the most of the striking, but Jenna was able to make enough of the fight about jiu-jitsu and secure control, back control deep into the fight, and she won the fight. Jenna recently lost for the first time by knockout, and for the first time by decision not long before that, but she's still a very good fighter. But the point is, Luana Santos showed in that fight that when shit goes wrong for her against a superior grappler, she's not going to wilt at all. So that was a good look for her. And that's part of the reason why I'm picking her to win. Because I have doubts about things going wrong in this fight, and I have faith in the top game of Casey O'Neill. That's where she's gotten a lot of these great victories. But I think Luana will be able to survive. Casey O'Neill, she's got a record of 9-2. She suffered her two losses in her last two fights. She lost to Jennifer Maia by unanimous decision. Jennifer Maia was beating her to the punch. She was just the much faster striker throughout that whole fight. Casey did her best to keep up and landed a good amount, but was never winning that fight. She never took control of it. And against Ariane Lipski, She got armbarred in round two. A She got punched in the face, and that's what sat her down. Maybe she didn't go down. I don't think she was officially dropped, but she was rocked with a short right hand, and that got the ball rolling. She almost got choked and TKO'd, and eventually Ariane found her way to an armbar. And it's forgivable tapping to an armbar because it looked like her arm was about to snap. But yeah, that's how she lost her last fight. Still, before that, though, she looked incredible, Casey O'Neill. She was 4-0 in the UFC with 3 second-round finishes, or actually 1 third-round finish over Lara Fritzen, formerly Lara Procopio. She choked her out, but she TKO'd Antonina Shevchenko and Shanna Dobson in round two on the ground. And I can't say that's Casey O'Neill's bread and butter. Her bread and butter is her Muay Thai. She's a striker. But on top, she's got a heavy top game and a big set of legs on her. And if she can control you and you're wilting and tired and whatever, she can put you away. I bring this all up to say if Luana Santos is taking this fight on too short a notice and she's not in optimal condition, even coming off of the fight in July and whatever, she could find herself in trouble with Casey O'Neill. Of course, she handled that loss to Stephanie Egger, or that win over Stephanie Egger very well. Could have been a loss. Stephanie Egger was the better woman down the stretch, started to get the better of her in positionally and also roughed her up in some moments. But she kept herself safe, kept herself from getting dominated and letting her concede any shitty positions. And she had done enough to win the scorecards, win the fight on the judges' scorecards. So whatever. Not a bad look for Luana Santos to win like that because her other two wins in the UFC have been very quick and not a big test at all. She went through Juliana Miller on the feet, TKO'd her. That's her one TKO victory. And she went through Maria Agapova on the ground. She technically dropped her. I feel like I got to mention that, but it wasn't such a big moment. It was kind of just like a shit happens type of thing. But she really finished her on the ground, dominated her on the ground, and rear naked choked her very quickly once it got there. She's looked incredible. Again, even that one loss she had was a razor thin fight to Jenna Bishop, and she showed so many great traits in defeat. And then her only other real tough fight since then was to Stephanie Egger under horrible conditions. And regardless of what happened there, she ended up walking away with a victory. So between that and the dominance she's shown in her victories, Luana Santos has to be my pick to win the fight. I think her judo base keeps the fight standing. She's also, I think, a good grappler on the ground, of course, where Casey O'Neill may not be able to mount her so easily like she did to Shanna Dobson. And on the feet, I think Casey O'Neill has an advantage on the feet, to be honest. But Luana Santos is more aggressive, maybe hits harder and has more power. And she's got a lot of great traits as well. Luana Santos, she's never been roughed up on the feet, and she's fine throwing down. But technically, she's at a disadvantage, and I do think standing up, Casey O'Neill is better. Without anybody getting big moments, I envision Casey O'Neill winning the points battle narrowly on the feet, just because she's the cleaner striker. So the pick is Luana Santos. I think she would win the wrestling/judo battle. I think she would win the striking or any battle early on just with her aggression. And when she loses the cardio battle, I think she's shown enough traits to keep herself safe and keep herself from succumbing to the top game of Casey O'Neill. So Luana by decision is the pick. I will look to bet on her winning by decision because even though Casey O'Neill was finished by armbar in her last fight, I think that's the primary path to victory for Luana Santos. And I'll also look to waste some money on Casey O'Neill in rounds 2 and 3 because if Luana starts to fatigue a little bit and Casey gets on top of her, could be deadly. So that's the assessment, but Luana's the pick. Next up, we have Joshua Culibao versus Ricardo Ramos. My prediction for the fight is Ramos wins. I've got him winning by decision, and I think the difference would be the grappling, or really the wrestling, first and foremost. But it's a pretty close fight. On the feet, Ramos might even be more dangerous. He's got some unique danger, but I think Joshua Culibao would get the better of him overall. He's a comfortable striker, Culibao, pretty goddamn tough. I think he's more durable between the two of them, and I think technically he would have an advantage over the course of 15 minutes. But Ramos is the more likely and willing grappler. He's the guy that wants to get there. He's the better submission artist if it does get there, even though Culibao got his only submission win in the UFC over Melsik Bagdasarian a few years ago, which was very nice. But I still think Ramos would win that fight on the ground, unless he's on the bottom, of course. So I think it'll be close, but I'm going with Ricardo Ramos. There's doubt with him. He was submitted twice in his last two fights to Charles Jourdain and Julian Erosa, two fucking killers. No shame in losing those fights, but it is still two submission losses for him. He was also submitted once way back when to this guy Manny. Just know that I know what happened. But the two knockout losses that he has come in the UFC as well to Lerone Murphy and Saeed Nurmagomedov. Saeed got him with a spinning back kick early, and Lerone Murphy got him at the end of round one, cracked him with a big shot, and pounded him on the ground till it was stopped. He's been finished in 5 of his 6 losses, so he maybe isn't the most durable guy in defeat. But I do think Josh Culibao doesn't have the danger of Lerone Murphy, certainly, who beat up Josh Culibao, and Saeed Nurmagomedov. I'd be surprised if Josh was able to knock him out. And as for submitting Ricardo Ramos, yeah, it's happened twice in a row, and it's happened 3 times altogether. But on paper, anyway, it shouldn't happen with Josh Culibao. He's only got the one submission. It just wouldn't make sense to me. Josh Culibao was finished once, and it was to Jalen Turner, a fight that he took on very short notice, moving up in weight. And Jalen Turner's a fucking monster anyway, so there's no shame there. But his other 2 losses, while they are by decision, they are both in his last 2 fights. He was completely neutralized by Lerone Murphy, beaten up by Lerone Murphy. And against Danny Silva, it was a pretty close fight, but ultimately the control was the difference, and he lost to Danny Silva a few months ago. Danny, that was his UFC debut. He still hasn't shown everything he's got to show, but I think he's going to prove to be an above average UFC fighter anyway. So, no shame there. But I don't think either guy is going to finish the other one. I do think this will be a close fight, and I've got the decision going to the guy that I expect to have more top control. Even if he's at a disadvantage on the feet, I don't think it's such a disadvantage where there'll be any gigantic moments. And I envision Ricardo Ramos being the physical bully in tight and the better grappler. I don't think he'll get a submission over Josh Culibao, but I think top control will score him enough points to win a decision. Ramos is the pick. He is the bet. He was the bet at better odds, to be honest. But he's still an underdog, and I'll wait for the props because if he does win, I'm pretty sure it is by decision. Ricardo Ramos. Joshua Culibao, again, the one time he was finished, you can make all the excuses for the loss. And Ramos, even though he's shown danger, half his knockout wins are spinning back elbows in the UFC, and the other 2, he steamrolled the guy early. I don't think Josh Kulibao's getting steamrolled. I don't think he's getting finished in any which way. And I've got Ramos winning by decision. And in the main event of the prelims, really, we have Walter Walker versus Junior Tafa. I'm only bringing that up to say they've each got one loss. Well, Junior has 2 losses in the UFC now, but they each have one decision loss. Muhammad Usman beat Junior Tafa, and Lucas Dreschke beat Walter Walker. And I don't know how anybody could watch either one of those fights and say, yeah, let's make this fight on the main event of the prelims of a pay-per-view card. Because it could be pretty dreadful, and that's actually my prediction. I've got Walter Walker making this a dreadful fight, getting on top of Junior Tafa, and winning with size and top control. And not a whole lot else. But look, there could be a whole lot else because Junior Tafa is there to be exploited. He's not the most refined grappler. He's not even a grappler at all. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of holes in his ground game. But We've seen him lose that type of fight once to Muhammad Usman, to Marcos Rogerio de Lima is a little different. Marcos is a fucking killer. But we've seen him lose that slow, big guy, crowding me type of fight to Muhammad Usman. It was a dreadful decision, and that's pretty much my prediction for this fight. Walter Walker duplicates that performance. On the feet, though, he's got to be really careful. He is outgunned significantly on the feet. And I'm not just talking about the movement and the technical aspect of kickboxing. He's outgunned there too, but he's also outgunned as far as the knockout shot goes. Junior Tafa's only got 5 victories, and they're all via knockout, and the last of which came against Parker Porter in 90 seconds. He's not the most proven guy, but he's proven himself enough for me to think if he wins this fight, it's by knockout and nothing else. I think, especially somebody sloppy like Walter Walker, who has never been finished, but if this fight's not going his way, I don't think he's going to be losing a kickboxing point decision. I think it's going to be one of those shots going through his big fucking gigantic head and knocking him out. But I'm picking against him. Again, I'm picking against Junior. I'm picking Walter Walker to win. He didn't look great in that Lucas Dreschke fight. That was a fight where Dreschke can beat lower end heavyweight zombies and just barely do it. And that's what happened against Walter Walker. I don't think he's about to turn a corner and go on some surging winning streak here. I think he's going to float around the bottom of the UFC heavyweight division and then move on. I think he'll be axed. I don't think he's going to fare too well. And even if he does win, I don't envision a lot of his wins being all that exciting. So, could be the Muhammad Makayev treatment. But yeah, I think he's definitely not great television, and I think this fight is going to be a slower, more dreadful fight. Walter Walker striking his way in tight, and he's gigantic, so he's really got to watch himself and his big head there, and not putting it on a tee. But I think he's going to get inside, rip Junior to the mat, and work from there. He's not the best submission artist, but he can pound you from on top. But I still don't envision him getting the finish, just based on the Muhammad Usman fight, I guess. Of course, in his last loss, Junior Tafa did get finished, but it was to a much more deadly heavyweight in Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Just incredibly fucking dangerous, leg kicks from hell, and that's ultimately what did Junior Tafa in. We're not going to see too many leg kicks from Walter Walker. We might, but not like Marcos anyway. It's going to be all about getting on top, and that's my prediction. I don't have the most faith in it, but let's go with Walter. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other video.